So, Scott, you were just in the same D3 playoff pod with my sometime sidekick, Justin Chesham, Christopher Newport, and you were talking about um, we were talking before we hit record, and we were talking about how it's very difficult to bring a kid in as a freshman and ask him to start winning games. In your case, as a men's coach, ask him to start winning games within, I don't know, within a week, basically, of you meeting
Yeah.
them on campus and then being a college student. So, talk about, maybe overcoming some of those challenges as a college soccer coach, and, how kids can best prepare themselves as they come in.
Well, I think it's a great topic, and I think the first part of it is like uh, being a good human being as a coach, and almost every answer can start with that. But getting players for the right reasons that you think could come in and are a good fit.
Mm-hmm.
That's where it all has to start. And I think for the players, it's the same thing. Not going to a program that they're going to struggle at. Whatever that is and whatever that means to them. So like if they're okay going through that freshman year and maybe not seeing the field as much, but learning the system and transitioning into the college game, then that works. But if it's going to be the type of situation where they're struggling and depressed and not happy because they're not on the field, then I think getting in front of that, which seems pretty simple, but most people don't do it, is get in front of that and then go to a program where you can step in and do that. And most players, if you talk to them and they're being honest, know where they could go in and make an immediate impact or where they're going to go in and it's a little bit of a stretch. And either one is fine. I just think coaches and players need to work together so that you paint that picture and then there's no surprises when you get there. And we're not trying to just get a player in. I know at Rowan, there's no way. I clearly tell players like you're not promised 1 second. You're not even really promised a position on the team and you got to fight for it. And I say that to kind of to take care of what you just asked. So they're not expecting too much and their standards aren't too high for themselves.
And then Gilda, you played at a Power 5 school, and what was your recruiting process like? And maybe talk about that first day that you lead up from your recruiting process, and talk about your first day that you reported to Duke and what that experience, what you remember of it, what that experience was like.
Yeah, definitely. I would say it was a very mysterious process. Even back then, I know a lot of parents and players kind of still talk about it today, and hopefully what we try to support through SoccerHead, which we'll talk about later. But yeah, I didn't know too much about, what I was supposed to be doing in the recruiting process. Thankfully, through my club, Team Boca, and the director of coaching there, Bill Daddio, and Scott Baker, who's on with us, he helped me as a club coach too, just kind of navigate the process. I knew a list of schools that I was interested in playing at. I knew that academics and soccer were really important for me. I was an absolute soccer head, crazy about the sport. But it was difficult. And my parents didn't know too much about the process. I think, luckily I had some guidance from people and I was in the right place at the right time with that. I went through, the ODP system. But it was difficult to navigate. And I think if it wasn't for those people that helped me navigate, I would have been a little bit lost. But I did look at schools that would challenge me both academically and athletically. I think Duke was a great fit just from the perspective that they were kind of on the cusp of being a great program. They had made one national final back in 1992. I went into Duke in 2010. So the competitiveness of that was really important. So yeah, it was tricky to navigate, but thankfully had the right resources with me to support.
Right. And then, what we were just talking about with Scott was, that arrival on campus, and, what was that like for you? And, arriving with a lot of really good players, and how did you find your way to fitting in and that sort of thing?
Yeah, I worked extremely hard leading up into that preseason. I think stepping onto campus, I felt a lot of confidence, going into my play, into my fitness, kind of controlling the controllables. But as soon as you step on, you go from being the best player in your state or the best player on your club team or your high school team, and you're just kind of another number on the team in terms of the level. So it was a good fit for me. I came to practice every day, ready to work hard. And I still remember like going into preseason and even throughout the season, I'd always take a nap before practice just because like I wanted to be performing at the absolute highest level I could be. For me personally, it was the right fit. You had to, prove yourself every single day. One bad game, couple bad games, and you're losing your starting position. And that at different points in the season did happen to me throughout the 4 years. And I always wiggled my way back. But I think it was about showing up every day. And, when you do break out of the starting lineup, like what are you doing to differentiate yourself and kind of earn your minutes back? So I love the environment I was in. And I think that goes across the board at Division I, Division II, Division III level. Nothing's kind of guaranteed to you when you step onto campus.
Right. Talk about maybe real quick about, maybe experiencing some lows when you were like how you handled, finding yourself out of the starting lineup and then, how you overcame that.
Yeah, you should ask Scott after all the phone calls I buzzed in with.
Don't worry, he's next.
Yeah, it was hard. I mean, like I said, you go from being like a top player in your program to just another number, and it does hit your ego, and sometimes even you start doubting yourself. But for me, what I always resorted back to when I was having, those moments of doubt or difficulty or I just got back on the field every single time. Like Tuesdays were our hardest practices, and they were long and very, very tiring. And I think we practiced for 3 hours on Tuesday because we played Thursday, Sunday, and I would go out early with our coach and, practice free kicks or get my touches in. And I think even at the club level, that was really important with me, like training with Scott before practice or on the weekends. And I think that helped me because I didn't just get to the Division I, step onto campus and just become complacent. I was always trying to be the first one in, last one out, and continuing to kind of improve my skills. So I don't know if my level of maturity was quite where it needed to be when I was in college. But I would say when I didn't really know what to resort, I just kind of doubled down on continuing to work hard. I think reflecting back, even playing with the reserves for the Boston Breakers after school, I kind of, stepped into a better mentality. I was enjoying the sport a lot more. And I think playing at a higher level than I was in college, just from that kind of combination. So if I could go back and do it again in those moments of doubt, I would have stepped more into sessions with my sports psychologist or just find kind of confidence outside the field. But it did work for me. And when I was there and kind of helped me kind of shift out of those difficult times.
Right. So Scott, I mean, you see kids all the time that you have to move out of the starting lineup for various reasons. I mean, what's the typical response to that? And like, what's a great response from a player to help them get back in? And it sounds like Gilda kind of figured it out, but from your guidance in a lot of ways. But talk about, your current team and what you've experienced and what you've, what knowledge your experience has given you to direct kids to get the most out of their experience, I guess.
So the first thing is, so Gilda was just very different than just about everybody I worked with up till that time, and she just outworked so many people in training and the hours she put in around it, and that's what sets you up for the confidence. Where when you get knocked down, you know that you've put that training in, and even as it comes out now for her, it's like you rely on your go-to, which is working harder and doubling down on the training. It's so important. I think on the coach's side of it, I always tell the players not to expect more than what they've trained for. You're usually going to come in a little bit under your training, not above it. So, if you trained a couple days a week, you went on a run every once in a while and, got on the ball every once in a while, you can't expect to be on one of the best teams in the country and starting and making an impact. It doesn't make sense. I always equate it to the players as like, studying for a test. If you didn't study, you can't walk out mad because you didn't get 100. But if you study for weeks and weeks and you put in that time, you could say, hey, what's going on? Like, I studied everything. I was prepared for this thing. Like, I should at least get an A on it. I think from a coach's standpoint, though, it's so important to make the division of here's who you are as a person, and I love you and I care about you either way. And then as a player, you're in a really good position to be able to enjoy this sport and play it. But that doesn't mean everything goes your way. It doesn't reflect on how me as a coach or the coaching staff or even your teammates feel about you. And being a good person still comes first. So being a good teammate and playing through it and go get better because of it, like Gilda was saying. So if we put somebody else in a position and you're off for that time, or you lost your starting position, it's like, now's your time to go get better. It's like kind of a wake up call. So they have to grab that side of it. And I think as coaches, we have to grab that side of nothing's wrong. You didn't do anything wrong. You're not in trouble. Like, we still love you. We still care about you. It's just, you have to raise your level so our team gets to a higher level. And when you're at a team like Gilda was on, or, we were talking about like Christopher Newport or Rowan or these kind of teams, like, you walk in knowing that, that's why they win. And I always tell people when I talk about a program, even at Rowan, that wins, it's not necessarily a good thing unless you're going to train and prepare at that level. You're going to be let down a lot. So I think just balancing that on both sides, and it goes back to that first question of like, being accurate with the level that you actually want to train at and prepare for, more so than just what you're capable of, because people are usually more capable at a higher level than they're willing to train at, and prepare for. So Gilda, again, was one of the unique players that I've worked with that just worked at such a high level. I didn't have any doubt, even if she was stretching it for her level, that she put in the time and work, that she would kind of figure it out somehow. But she just put in double, triple the time that most of the other people did. So, and again, most players don't do that.
Gilda, where'd that come from?
I think I just loved it. I think it truly was an obsession and such a passion. And I did, start to notice that the more I trained, the better I was performing, and that becomes kind of an addiction. But I will have to say that if I was putting 2-3 times the amount of work in, Scott was usually there with me. So I very grateful for kind of the resources and support I had around me. My dad's super passionate about the game too. So that kind of support system definitely goes a long way.
Yeah, for sure. Scott, what percentage of kids that you get into your program do you think like are, I don't know if overachiever is the right word, but kids who really, really are passionate about it, and you have to drag them off the field, and they're beating you there and turning on the lights and all that stuff. What percentage of kids these days are in that situation, I guess?
Well, without being they're sounding negative, I would say very, very few. I mean, if I was going to guess a percentage, it would just be a guess. But there's very, very few, and it depends on what level you're saying. So, like, there's players that do that, but if they're saying they like want to go pro after college, which people just throw that around, and I always look at them and say, like, do you really? Like, are you, do you know what that takes, and do you know what a professional player trains like? And it could be twice a day, and they're eating a certain way, and they're not drinking and doing different things like that, not drinking alcohol and things like that. So I think when you ask the percentage, I would say very low for the level that they want to reach or the level that they think they can reach. I would say it's many more just to be part of it and to be on a team. But again, most players want to start and they want to impact the team. And if you're on one of the best teams in the country, I always tell them, like, you got to train to be the best player in the country in your position. Like, that is literally how you have to train and prepare, or we can't call ourselves one of the best teams in the country if you're not training that way and you want to be part. There's going to be a miss there. So depending on the level that we're specifically talking about, I would say, some players do very, very small percentage actually train and work at the level they think their potential is, and then actually achieve that. Very, very few.
Yeah, I mean, it's I guess it's important to have people in your support circle, early on that kind of instill that in you and make you realize how important that is. Sounds like Gilda, you had that with Scott and other coaches and your dad. So
I think one of the things too, like you asked
cool.
Gilda, but like Gilda really did have the passion like that. That's what was different. Like I could push Gilda different because she loved it. There's other people that I was training that were very, very good, but we couldn't push in the same way because they would have hated it. So I think just knowing who you are, like we're talking about this in soccer and sports,
Right.
but I ran for many years. I didn't train like I did as a soccer player. I didn't have the passion for it. It was just something that I did. It was a hobby. So I think recognizing that as a coach on our side with your players, and maybe even more important than that is the players for themselves, is like, what level do you want to be pushed at? And somebody like Gilda, it would have been like, I'll take more, let's do more, whatever it takes kind of mentality. But that fit her well. And that obviously doesn't fit everybody, so that's what I always say is like,
Right.
you have to be a good person. You have to understand yourself. It's not, if you're a good soccer player, you're a better person. That's not how it goes. It doesn't mean you're going to get a better job. It doesn't mean any of those things.
Right. Yeah. So I had a question in my head and I just lost it.
I think because I interrupted. That's why.
No. It's old age, man. It's it's catching up. So yeah, it'll dawn on me as soon as we start on something else what I was going to ask. But so talk about, you guys have started a venture called SoccerHead, and it's explain it to me so that our audience understands, and then maybe let's talk about what inspired you guys to go down that road, so to speak.
Yeah, I can kick off. So our big bet with SoccerHead is we're creating a soccer-only network. Obviously, there's initial bets within that, which will focus on the talent identification process. But Scott and I, we've been connected for years, and we've had, the player-coach relationship, just friend relationship, business relationship. Now with SoccerHead, it feels like family. And we just see an opportunity to centralize the entire soccer community in one place with the passion and the connectivity that technology can bring. So it's, centralizing the love that we have for the game in one place, connecting with other people in one place. And we're really, really excited about the opportunity. I think, if we could only answer what is SoccerHead in a few words, we're creating the LinkedIn for soccer. So how can we bring the community in one place through connectivity and then allow them to have the resources they need to advance to the next level?
Right.
I think it's important to with this is like we talk about how Gilda was with training as a player, and I think one of the things with SoccerHead that we're looking for is the passion just for the love of the sport. So it could be a player, it could be an official, it could be a coach, it could just be a fan. I shouldn't even say just a fan because most people are fans. So I think one of the things that we want to provide is an opportunity, like Gilda was explaining, just for people who have that passion anywhere around the sport in any way that you're involved with it. And being a fan is a big part of that. And we want to provide that as well.
Right. So describe like what you envision it being, and, how are you going to bring everyone together as a community within the soccer world?
Definitely. And you can't, be all things to all people at once. So our initial bet is through the talent identification process. So I think one good way we could paint the picture is I'm, Gilda Doria, a sophomore in high school in South Florida, interested in a bunch of different collegiate programs. So I come in, create my profile. It's a very 360-degree view of who I am. You understand my journey, what club teams I've played on, my accomplishments. There's a lot of video and media integrations. And then the same way I would search for a job at IBM as an adult, I go into the platform, search the different programs I have interest in. So for me, if I was a sophomore in high school, I would search Duke Women's Soccer. I land on Duke Women's Soccer's page. I learn about the different players on the team, their performance, upcoming games. And Coach Robbie Church could actually post an opening for a position for the class of 2026. So he says he's looking for a center midfield for the class of 2026. He posts his requirements. I can actually apply to the program, and on the back end, the coach, gets an inbound leads of different talent that match what he's looking for. And I think we're completely, flipping the recruiting process on its head. Right now, it's very much cast a wide net, hope something sticks, send a bunch of emails with contact information that you get from different recruiting services, and cross your fingers and just wait and see if something matches. So here we're allowing players to take a lot of accountability and kind of be very take a lot of ownership on their journey, see what matches them, learn more about like network effects that are happening. Maybe someone who plays on my club team at Team Boca graduated from Duke Women's Soccer. I can connect with them in that way. So it's very much like copy and paste kind of the effects that LinkedIn has, but apply it in the soccer world. And that's kind of our initial bet. And then over time, we'll continue to add more layers to what the community looks like, the people, what kind of use case they're looking. Maybe they're not looking to play in college. Maybe a collegiate player has a profile looking to play at the professional level, or a youth player is looking to connect into a youth academy. But kind of the main news feed will be curated with exciting soccer information, videos, and you get to learn about other players' profiles by searching for them the same way you would in kind of the LinkedIn system.
Very cool. Scott, you have anything to add to that?
That was a big chunk of it, especially.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot. All right.
I know when to. I know when to let Gilda lead, but no, that is it. And on this side of it, there's a lot of people doing it in an inaccurate way. That's ineffective, and I see it as a college coach of the portal is such a big deal, and that's filled with people that did it not wrong, but like it was ineffective. Like it wasn't the school for them. It wasn't the program for them. Anytime I get a transfer, I talk to them all the time about what they didn't know and why it didn't work. And, so I've been doing this for, over 25 years of watching how players get in and what makes them happy and, all those things that have to happen and putting all of that information into the technology that we'll have will make it a more enjoyable process. Definitely what Gilda said. I think it's so big, and I think players don't understand it, but it's their process, and they have to own it and be responsible for it. And if a coach likes you, that doesn't mean it's the right school. And maybe a coach at first doesn't know that or doesn't think you could play there, and that doesn't mean that it's the wrong school either. I mean, that happened with Gilda, and she fought through it and is a two-time captain at Duke and got her master's there, and that whole experience for her because she knew what she wanted and she stayed with it. So I just see so many people and players not having that opportunity because of the lack of information, maybe some misdirection on what they think the process should be like. Definitely a lack of technology, and we'll have that to provide and give them a better opportunity to own their experience.
And it kind of brings into the fold, it's kind of like casting a wider net, right? So that you are aware, you're aware as a recruit, and the coaches are aware of you as the recruit, the opportunities that are out there based on need, right?
Yeah.
It sounds like.
Yeah, I would definitely say casting a wider net, but like casting a wider net that's you're educated on. So it's like if I'm searching for programs, it's based off a requirement, and vice versa. Like obviously if there's 300 players that apply to the Duke Women's Soccer role, the coach is more educated, even with like the AI and the algorithms that we provide on the list of recommendations. And the types of players that they like to find. Will help through the platform really even democratize the talent ID process, because maybe there's players that coaches haven't had their eyes on, and vice versa.
I think on both sides of it, for players and coaches, when we say cast a bigger net, we have to be careful of that, like almost like what Gilda was saying, because if I'm looking at 7 players, I could give them the time and attention that they need. And if they're looking at 7 schools, they can do that as well. If this technology is in place, I'm looking at 300, emails that are coming in from different sources and all over the place. We don't have the opportunity to do that. So it's not necessarily the individuals or, even like I'm saying, the players have to own it, but it's difficult if you're looking at 30 colleges at the same time, or, you're just throwing it out there. We got to know a lot more about these schools and the programs and the majors and what it takes to be on that team and what the daily routine looks like. And does it work for you? And, all these little details that, college coaches would know. And it's like, let's put that forward and we can narrow that list down to a efficient list for the players and also an efficient list for the coaches to actually give everybody the attention that it needs to make the right decisions.
Right. Yeah, I guess in my mind, when I say, go ahead, Gilda. Sorry.
Oh no, I was just laughing. We do a lot of user interviews, and we were interviewing a coach recently just on the platform. And he said that a lot of the recruiting services, even now, he gets them in his inbox, he feels tired. And he said the prime example of why he feels so tired is a player emailed him and said, "Congrats on the start to a great season. Like, you must be so proud of your team." And he looks at me on the call and he goes, "We're 0-5. And I was just like, that's exactly what's wrong with the system. It's like these kids and their families are, paying for these services, just sending it, blasting it out, not really educating themselves if that's even a good fit. So like the quality of just the process has really deteriorated over time.
Yeah, I've heard that many times on here that it's someone's intending to send an email to Coach Baker and they put Coach Brown, and that Coach Brown is at Washington State or something. It's just like they send out so many emails that it gets mixed up, and they may not even they may be like, what is a Rowan? I have no idea what that is or where that is. They're still sending them an email.
Yep, they're just throwing it out there. We get that all the time.
Happens.
Yeah, and it's hard for coaches. Like, I really do try to do it when I see those mistakes, is like, just understand it. I know some college coaches like, you have to make sure, but, we're not, we're not being open enough to what the players are going through right now, because I understand it. Like, we get a ton of emails that are also sending a ton of emails out. So if they make a mistake and get my name wrong, or they say they want to go to Marist and it's coming to Rowan, like, I get it. We're not the only school they're looking at. But if we can make that process, like I said before, if we can make it more efficient, we can make it more effective, and we can cut it down to a reasonable size that works for the coaches, that works for the players, then we can really get that many more players. And then, hopefully there's a lot less of a need for a portal, a quote unquote portal, where players are just coming in and they're just wide open to just, leaving the next year. And, that doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help the players, and it doesn't help the programs or the coaches. So we have to find a better way, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like, these kids, they're making such important decisions at that juncture in their lives, and to not have done the homework on it and to an extent that they end up in the transfer portal is it's just a testament to how the process, like you guys are saying, is kind of deteriorating, and on both sides, right? I think that it's just it's something that is awesome that you guys are addressing.
Scott, people are paying
always emphasizes more. Go ahead, Scott.
I was just going to say, people are paying more for this process, and supposedly, even since Gilda and I worked together as player coach, it's been years and years and years, and the process, if anything, I would say, is probably way worse. Not better. So when we look at the players and we see some of these things are going wrong, I always have a soft spot for the players because I get it. It's not that easy. And one of the things that we want to do with SoccerHead is give them the information where now we can say, okay, here is the information and some of the details that are really important, not just somebody that's trying to sell you on something, are now right in front of you where you can make, where you can make those decisions of, what's important about the location and how do you get there and how far is the airport and what's the female to male ratio, all these different things that religion, all these things that could come in and people say like, yeah, I didn't like that. And I'm like, wow, like that's definitely something that should have been provided for you. But again, it's not all on them if that information isn't easy to get to. And that's definitely one of the things that we want to make sure that we do with the technology of the app.
Go ahead, Gilda.
Yeah, no.
Scott rudely cut you.
I think Scott was kind of hitting on it. It's just, it goes far beyond like what's on the field. It's also the academics, the overall experience. Like, I think kids getting into the transfer portal, maybe it doesn't always have to deal with the team. It has to deal with kind of what they're experiencing. And we just hope to better support that. I'll never forget, even one of my teammates, she came to Duke thinking she could be a nurse in undergrad, and you can't. You can only take pre-med classes because it's a liberal arts school. So she ended up having to go to nursing school after she graduated, and she was on a full ride. So like, talk about a headache. And that was just, just from an experience of lack of education going into it. It's not her fault. It was just kind of hard to navigate and hard to see. So we hope to even make that process better through what we're providing.
I think I just want to add it's super important to know that we're talking about a sport and we're talking about soccer and we have to make sure that works and it's a priority and it's important. But the ultimate priority is all of these college programs are part of an academic institution. And that is why you go to an academic institution and then all the things that go within that academic institution. And sports are maybe a big part of it, but just a part of it. There's other things of course, the academics and the majors, but the type of campus and where it is and all the other things that are available with colleges, especially today with everything that's available to the student athletes. So we also don't want to forget that this isn't geared only around soccer, and there are a lot of people that transfer outside of reasons on the field.
Yeah, I had the Gilda. Either one of you actually. I had one of the co-founders of Morgan's Message on, which
nice.
is from Duke.
Yeah.
And they're on a lot of campuses. Scott, I don't know if they're on Rowan or not, but basically it was founded because there was a female lacrosse player at Duke who ended her life because, ultimately I believe she felt isolated, after an injury. And I think that, like, when you talk about what you guys are doing, you're stacking the deck in your favor rather than being on a campus and finding a wrong fit and being isolated. And, the generation that we're talking about right now is, they've had a lot to deal with. And, it's easy for us, or for me as an old guy, to say, oh, come on, but that's just, I can't relate to what kids, I have kids who are in their 20s and it's hard to understand what they're going through. And so, like, just giving them the tools like you guys are talking about so that they can make an intentional, well-directed decision is super huge for this upcoming generation and
I think
generations to come, really.
Sometimes just that open communication, right, with all these things, with with anxiety, depression, with and alienation, just being able to reach out and having a platform that provides that of talking that through. And like I said in the beginning, it's like with a lot of student athletes, like, it's not just about your performance on the field. Like, maybe your performance on the field isn't great right now, but life's still good and life's okay, and making sure that we have the true priorities in line is important. But I think a platform like this, with everybody that's going through it that are closer to our age, closer to Gilda's age or younger, all being able to communicate in a healthy way would be a real good thing right now.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. And it's awesome to see what Morgan's message is doing, especially just honoring her life. And I think one thing we want the platform to do, it's providing a service, like we're facilitating these connections. And I think sometimes, uh, just like anything in life, when you're talking to a coach or talking to different programs, they obviously want to sell you on it, that it's a great fit for you. But I think one thing that will be super powerful through our platform is just the network connections, the network effects. Like, what better way to get information and learn about a program than to connect with someone who's currently in the program, or to connect with someone who's graduated, learn about like what kind of culture the team has, the environment, what is it like to play at that school, what is it like to be a student at the school. And I think, you know, for one reason or another, these different organizations that are out there providing these services, they've provided too many layers, and not provided direct access to just the information. And I think the best way to get this information is from people who have been through the experience. And I think that's what LinkedIn does so well. It's like, you want to go work at Google or you want to go work at Microsoft. And what do? You go reach out to people who currently work there, who have worked there, and you have conversations with them. What's the experience like? What should I expect going in? How can I best prepare? And I don't know why, and Scott and I talk about it a lot, like we have these networks in our social lives, we have these networks in our professional lives, but we don't have these networks in our athletic lives. And why not bring this to, the number one sport in the world, one of the most powerful sports in the world, and allow people to have these opportunities to share with one another and make these connections and have these types of conversations.
Yeah, it's a great concept. So when are you guys going to be ready to deliver this to the public? Can I start using?
Yeah, we're in the works right now. We're targeting middle of next year for kind of a go live date, but working very hard, having a lot of different user interviews, testing, getting as much feedback as we can, and talking to different organizations. So definitely be on the lookout for something later in the year next year.
What else do you guys have to add about SoccerHead, or anything in general for that?
Well, I think, I mean, we're talking a lot about like the start of it, and so much faster than you, Gilda. I think the future of the platform, the future of what we can provide, is so much more than we're talking about today. And Gilda and I have been talking about it over a year now. But to try to get it through in one conversation is difficult. But we do want it to be, a main site, or a main platform, to bring soccer people together, soccer heads together. And more so than just the players, although that's super important, and we're talking about all the reasons why. There are more parts of the sport that we want to bring in, internationally, and the national teams and the World Cups and the big tournaments, and professional players, and then again going all the way down to fans, and how to follow and how to support a team, and how to get on and be able to keep up with schedules that might not be in this country or that might be in this country, seeing when they're televised, and officials, and getting jobs, and again, it's the linked into soccer. So I think those other things that are maybe difficult to touch on now, are something that is definitely worth mentioning, because I think it's going to be part of the future.
Yeah, and I would just add, I think if the platform does nothing else, I just want, I know Scott, we talk about it all the time, we just want people to enjoy the game. Like, let's take out the noise of, different things that even younger kids need to focus on. They just need to focus on, getting better, developing their skills, really enjoying the game. And these like very difficult, intricate processes, even in the talent ID process, like we need to remove the friction out of the experience for these kids. Because I can't tell you how many times I get on the phone doing these user interviews, and a child will say like, it's too difficult, like I don't want to do it anymore, I really love it, but like the process is so difficult. And forget soccer, like we keep talking about, these are pathways to a better life, a better education, opening new doors. And if we can help with that experience even a little bit, I think that will be an absolute win. And to Scott's point, in terms of the vision of where this can go, it's going to be really special. I went with my dad last weekend to Copa Libertadores, the final in Brazil, and just seeing the passion, the excitement, and how people love to connect and kind of experience the game together. If we can help facilitate more of those connections through technology, I think it's going to be really, really exciting and super special for the sport.
Yeah, I mean, it's there's so many layers to it, to what you guys are doing. I can't wait to see what happens, and would hope to have you guys on again as you guys get closer to launching. Yeah, I mean, keep us updated, and I can't thank you enough for coming on here.
Thanks so much,
Great.
Scott.
Yeah,
Both
learned so much.
Yeah, thank you both, Scott. I appreciate your time. So thank you very much. It's great meeting you, and hopefully we'll see each other at one of the fields maybe next year.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
All right.